Joe, we've got lots of questions, especially if you know how well or not well the White Sox have been doing. So let's go ahead and break down this trade. What is this going to mean for our Red Sox?
Yeah, well, they finally made a move, and that was something that we had been hoping to see the Red Sox do here as they're in the winter meetings along with the other major league teams. And we expected maybe for them to go sign a free agent pitcher. It was Max Fried and Corbin Burns, the two biggest pitchers out in the market. Well, the Red Sox were in on Max Fried. The Yankees get him. And there was this other avenue that the Red Sox could go and get a top flight starter. And it was via trade. And it's because they have so many good prospects. They trade away 4 prospects in this deal, a couple of top prospects within this system. So the White Sox get a hole, but they do get a really good pitcher back in Garrett Crochet. But Courtney, it's so fascinating to me, this deal, because the upside is very high with Crochet. He was an all-star last year, pitched really well in the first half, and that was before things kind of fell off in the second half in his first year as a starting pitcher within the major leagues. But he's unproven in that last year was the only time he did start at the major league level. And so we'll see how he ultimately fits with the Red Sox. But in terms of upside guys in their starting rotation, to me, he's at the top of the list. So it's a gamble. It's a risk that they're taking to deal away these prospects like they just did. Will it pay off? We'll wait and see. But I understand why they made this move, Craig Breslow and company, because they needed to do something. They needed to make this team better at the major league level, which for the last couple of years, they've been building up the minor league farm system to help this team become a contender. One way to do that is to deal away some of your prospects and get a guy that has the upside like Garrett Crochet.
And I think it's so interesting that you bring up the point that Crochet is unproven, infinite potential, but unproven. And that's where that gamble comes in, because you're like, he could be wonderful, but he could also not be wonderful here with us in Boston.
Yeah, the second half of the season, he didn't have a win. The White Sox didn't have many. I mean, they set the record for most losses in a season in Major League Baseball.
This is what I'm saying.
And Courtney, that's another fascinating part of this too. You go from that type of environment to now the pressure cooker of Boston playing with the Red Sox. That part of it is really interesting. But again, the first half was really good. Strikeouts per 9, which is something that teams, especially in baseball nowadays, that means so much because they really look at strikeout numbers and see that as the most important thing. I mean, among many other things, but if you can strike out a lot of guys, that shows that your stuff is really good. This guy's stuff is top flight, and that's why they made a deal like this. Strikeouts per 9 among starting pitchers with 140 innings pitched. This guy was at the top of the list. Now, again, he did it in one season as a starting pitcher. So that's part of the equation here that you do feel maybe a little uneasy in the fact that they gave up the prospects that they did. Kyle Teal was the top prospect that they gave away, and he's a guy that was seen as the big 4 in the Red Sox minor league system. Him, Marcelo Meyer, Roman Anthony, and then Christian Campbell. So it was one of them they had to deal away to get a player like this in Garrett Crochet, and they did it. Braden Montgomery was their top pick from a year ago in the 2024 draft. So they've dealt away first-round picks in each of the last 2 years, along with 2 other prospects that I think that could have been seen as depth. Chase Mydroth is a guy that gets on base a whole lot. In the minor leagues, he did it with Worcester last year, and Winkleman Gonzalez, there's some upside there, but I think people see him more as a reliever. So again, you have to deal away these types of prospects to get a player this good in terms of upside, and the Red Sox have done that.
Now, we talked about taking Crochet from bottom of the barrel to the pressure cooker. Where do you think Crochet fits in with the Red Sox rotation? Yeah,
see, to me, I think you put him at the top now. Now, Tanner Houck had a really good year this past season. He was an all-star, kind of like Garrett Crochet in terms of, the way that the season ultimately unfolded. Had a really good first half, and then the second half tired out a bit. But to me, again, on the upside side of it, I think it's Crochet now at the top. Unless they make another deal for a starting pitcher, I think Crochet is the guy that's going to be starting on opening day. It's possible that that's not the case, but I think when you make such a blockbuster move like this, you're almost telling the fan base, hey, this guy's your number 1, at least as of now. They could still, as we're talking right now, Corbin Burns is still out there on the free agent market, and maybe the Red Sox decide to spend the money on him. But what this does do for you, Courtney, I think this is an important point, it does give you some more flexibility in spending, because the reason he costs so much is, one, he's so young, he's only 25 years old, but on top of that, he's going to be really cheap. and they have him for team control for 2 years. So basically that means that they're going to have him at a relatively cheap price for his talent before he goes to free agency, and he won't make Juan Soto money of over $700 million, but he'll, if he continues on the trajectory that he is now on, he could be making big money. So the Red Sox do save there on the money side, but they still have more holes to fill. I think they could still use another starter. I think they could use a right-handed bat. Teoscar Hernandez is a guy that people, I think, would be a good fit for this team. And they might try to go after an middle infielder like Alex Bregman. We'll see if they ultimately go that direction.
Now, with all those holes they have left to fill, is there anything else you think is important for viewers to know, Red Sox fans to know right now that we didn't get to touch on?
Well, I just think Red Sox fans, I think there's probably a mixture of feelings right now because they look at the package of prospects that they traded away. And I think there's a little bit of angst when you trade away so much of your prospect depth, as they did for a guy in Garrett Crochet. And I was, talking with Jim Harrington, obviously, who works here, and I was trying to think of a trade that this reminded me of. You actually can go back 8 years to when the Red Sox traded for Chris Sale, who was a left-handed, nasty starting pitcher that the Red Sox gave away 4 prospects for. And 2 of them were really like top flight prospects, Michael Kopech, Yohan Moncada. Red Sox won the World Series 2 years later, and Chris Sale was the best starting pitcher on that team when they won the World Series in 2018. It's a little different. This guy is not as proven as Chris Sale was, but they're hoping for similar upside, so they're making that same type of gamble of let's go from our strength, which is our minor league system, trade away some prospects that we don't see as the top flight impact guys. I think people around baseball would say Roman Anthony and Christian Campbell at this point are the top 2 prospects in the Red Sox system. And third, again, by most accounts at this point, is probably Marcelo Meyer. They still have those guys left over to fill holes at the major league level with this team specifically, or maybe they go and try to make another deal within trading one of those guys. I think it's the former. I think they're going to now look to those 3 specifically, 3 of what was the big 4 with Kyle Teal now gone, and say, you know what, let's see if these guys can make it at the big league level and be impact guys that we hope they were once we got them into our system.